Hey, Granny Gear here for Old Guy on a Bike. You know when you find something, a part of your bike or an accessory or a piece of clothing that you just love to use and it makes your riding better? That's great, because sometimes that search can take a while. Maybe it's that saddle that you finally love to use. But have you ever wondered to yourself, is there greener grass? Is there something else that's better that I haven't used yet? And that's where I was with gravel bike tires. I had found early on that this tire was one of my absolute favorites of all the ones I had tried. I tried quite a few. This tire is the Wilderness Trail Bike's Resolute. It's a 700 by 42 tire, which is kind of a tweener size. More volume than a 40 without a lot of weight. Not as big as a 45, but not as heavy and potentially slow rolling, and this will fit more bikes than a 700 by 45 will, who often ends up being more like 46 millimeters wide on a wide rim. On these Easton 24 millimeter internal rims that are hookless, this measures to be 45 millimeters wide. When I first got a look at this Resolute, I thought, well, it's pretty knobby. It's got a fairly good amount of open knobs here. I thought, you know what? I'm not sure if that'll be good for me because I have to do a lot of road to get to the gravel where I live. Now, that requires a tire that is not going to disgrace itself on the pavement. I don't need a racing tire, but if I'm dragging it along, that is not going to be fun for me. Now, the other thing to consider, when I say gravel, I don't have gravel here. What I have is dirt roads, and they're not very good dirt roads either. They're typically poorly maintained, they're rutted, they're rocky, and they're sandy. So the volume of this tire is right in the sweet spot of where I wanted to be. And I found this knob pattern, this semi-open with the center locking kind of center knobs to roll surprisingly well on pavement, and yet in the dirt to give me excellent performance in dry dirt. And I'd used it in mud, and you know, it's probably as good as most other tires would be in the mud outside of a dedicated mud tire. Also, this is the best tire I have ever used in sand. It's magical. I don't know what it is. It's the profile, I guess, and the knob shape, but it doesn't tend to cut in and go its own way. It'll just kind of float on the top. And we do a lot of sand here in the summer. Man, it gets so sandy. I mean, if I was in Florida, I was riding a gravel bike, I'd have a Resolute on there. But I was wondering, am I missing something? Is there something else I could try? So I assembled 3 other tires I thought might be contenders for the crown to see if I liked them better than the Resolute. Here they are, one at a time. Now the first one, this is a Panaracer Gravel King SK. Now it looks a little skinny right now because I don't have any air in it, but it's a 43 millimeter tire and it'll easily be a 44 by the time you get it on a wide rim. Now I've used this tire before. I remembered it as being a fast rolling tire on hard surfaces with good hookup, and that is what it is. It rolls very quietly on pavement, on hard dirt, fast feeling tire. Cornering, I never found like I hit its limits. And in the sand, it does actually really well. So it hits the marks for me in volume and in performance in the dry conditions I ride it in. The one thing that surprised me though was the ride quality. Now, each one of these tires I'm trying, I began at 30 pounds because that's where I used the Resolutes and I thought it's a good place to start. Now, when I rode these tires on a 40-mile mixed surface gravel bike loop up in the mountains of Big Bear, California, that was a loop that threw everything at me, and the conditions I'd ride here all condensed in one 40-mile ride. At 30 pounds, I was surprised really how much feedback I was getting from bumps and things. So I didn't have a gauge with me, so I just blipped air down little at a time till I felt like I was getting the performance I expected. And then the rest of the ride was awesome. Still rolled fast on the road, and on the dirt, much more comfortable in all the baby head rocks and ruts and whatnot. Now when I got back, I put a gauge on him. I found out to be at 25 to 26 pounds, which kind of surprised me. Now if you've ever watched the YouTube channel Gravel Cyclist, he does a great job with that channel, by the way. He's from Florida. He loves this tire. I know he uses it quite a bit, and I can see why, because I think for the hard dirt down there and any sand they might have, I think this would be a great tire. So if I had to run this at 25 pounds to get the ride quality out of this tire at 30 pounds, something is amiss. Maybe the casing is stiffer. I don't know if it's the compounds or something in this tire that is giving it kind of a firmer ride. Now, is that a problem? I don't know. I actually really did enjoy using this tire. However, it had to make me wonder why the 5-pound disparity. Now the next tire I used, this is the IRC Bokken Doublecross TLR. Now you can see this tread pattern. It is very unique among all these other tires. Much more aggressive, open knobs. The casing is actually wider than the knobs on this tire, which is kind of interesting. Inflated, it's very peaky. It doesn't really show here, but it has a very crowned, and that was on purpose. So IRC developed this out of a cyclocross tire, which would make sense because you want that peaky, fast side knobs to, you know, in cyclocross, you get a lot of off-camber stuff. You have a very big tire, so you want that, so it's going to hook up. Does that translate to a gravel tire for me? No, not really. It actually rolled better than you'd expect. These center knobs do a pretty good job of rolling on the road, but I would say it wasn't equal to the other tires that I have. One thing I noticed negatively to it besides that was the casing being wider than the knobs. I would be climbing up like a rutted fire road. My rear tire would drop into the rut as I was trying to cross it at an angle. It just didn't seem like it had the purchase to climb out of that. Cornering traction, I had no problems with it. Braking traction, all that was quite good as you would expect. However, this tire hates the sand. It will not go straight. It will dive in and cut in. Yeah, not a fan of that. I think that is the shape of the peakiness when it's inflated, and these more aggressive knobs tend to cut into the sand and not float over the top. So for me, if I lived in a moister climate where the dirt was loamier, etc., I can see this being a tire I would use and probably be excellent. However, and it rides very, very well at 30 pounds, great riding tire. The volume is there, but it just didn't seem to be right for me in these dry, loose SoCal conditions. Now, if there was one tire I thought that might kick the Resolute off the top of the heap, it's this one. This is a Specialized Pathfinder Pro. Isn't that an interesting tread pattern? Look at that center knob ridge on it. That looks like that would roll really well on pavement. All these little micro knobs on the side, that kind of promises good traction in dry dirt, like little micro edges, and a little more aggressive knob in the final row. Again, 42 millimeter tire. Again, it ends up being about 44 on a wide rim. The volume's there, ride quality was excellent at 30 pounds, no complaints. Rolls very well on the road. There are times it was odd. It felt like it was kind of dragging me along, or I was dragging it along a little bit. I don't know if I was really going slower. It just felt odd. I know a tire with these little small knobs that distort easily, that's a slow rolling tire on pavement. WTB has a tire like that. So that's the Venture, not sure. So maybe that's what's happening. I'm not really sure. Still, all in all, no complaints with how it rolled on the road. In the dirt, traction's amazing, cornering tractions. You wouldn't think so, but it hooks up so good in the dirt. So very, very nice tire. Oh, and in the sand, very, very good in the sand. Yep, not as good as the Resolute, but still quite good. This is definitely a worthwhile tire, I think, to consider for the conditions I ride in. Now, here's a ringer of sorts, because I couldn't include this in my testing because it's a different size tire. This is a 700 by 45. Now, I reviewed this. This is the Pirelli Cinturato Gravel RC. Now, this has a fabulous tread pattern, I think, for where I live. The small row of center knobs rolls very well on the road. Not quite as good as the Resolute maybe, or maybe it is. It's very, very good. Cornering on this traction, I think, exceeds the Resolute. I really, really like this tire for where I live. It was excellent, but it is just too big and too heavy to drag around all the time for me. I might do 50-50 road dirt on a 50 mile or 70 mile ride, And so for me, a 700 by 45, even a good rolling one at this weight, just doesn't interest me. Now, if this tire was a 700 by 42, it's probably what I'd be running. So here we are, full circle back to the WTB Resolute. This so far is still at the top of the heap for me as my go-to gravel bike tire. It's on the set of wheels that are on my Turner Cyclosis, which is now my new gravel bike, by the way. I like that so much that I bought that from David Turner. It's going to replace my Linsky GR250. And when I went back to this tire after trying all the others, I realized why I liked it. It just does everything I care about very, very well. Maybe not better than anything else in one thing, but as an all-arounder for Southern California dirt mixed in with a little bit of road, the WTB Resolute, still my go-to tire, and that's where it's going to stay for now until something better comes along. Well, that's all I got to say about that. As always, you guys have a great week or weekend, and you know what I say, go ride your bikes. Just hold it level, start level, and that'll be good. Whoa! Whoa! That was the wrong line. All right.
You look like a rookie. Come on. I expect more out of you.
Yeah, that was just a practice one.